Phil Keiran, our composer. Phil, come on stage. Paul Kennedy, producer, who also played Graham. Desmond Eastwood, who played Magic Shop. John Travers, who played Lefty. Well, I'm not in the mood. And Ciaran Flynn, who played Scholar on screen. Ben Conway, our writer, is here to play. Is there anyone else I've forgotten who's here from the film? Joana, yes, Joana Ribeiro, please. Please go a second.
Well, I'm Lisa Cannon from Virgin Media Television, and of course you're here at the Virgin Media Dublin International Film Festival, the gala screening of your film, Nightride. Please give them a round of applause. It was absolutely tremendous. For me, my heart was in my mouth, Stephen. What a banger, as you said when you kicked off proceedings earlier. What is it like to conceptualise a movie like this and finally to have it here in front of an audience and in a cinema?
Well, it's not something we could imagine on set. We just had to get through the night, without like a car crash or the CD player breaking down. Without the police disrupting it for more than 10 minutes, because every night they were pulling us over. But from the very beginning, we just kept some certain principles in mind. Moe had to be driving the car, and we had to shoot in real time, and that's all. We didn't care if the film was great or whatever. That was our job. We accomplished our job. Then it's in the hands of Moe to deliver an amazing performance.
Incredible, and an amazing performance, IFTA nominated performance. Please give Moe a round of applause. Moe, yourself and myself were talking today earlier, and just in terms of your performance, you kind of played it earlier. You said, like, this is one of my favourite performances that I've ever done.
Did I say that?
You did.
I didn't say that. I said it was my favourite.
I mean, it obviously, emotionally, and in every sense physically so draining, but what you said in terms of the performance was that it really pushed you and gave you those boundaries that you needed to crash through. Isn't that really what it's all about as an actor? That is a performance that you can only but be proud of.
Probably only once in my life, but I don't know.
In one take. Tell us about playing Budge.
Well, again, this came about from conversations, from being in this cinema, seeing the survivalists, like I said earlier, from meeting Ben, from random circumstances that got people in touch with one another. Me and Ben had done a short together. Ben would always chat to me about his inspirations, American films, David Fincher, Michael Mann. I always wanted to work with this man, and just random scenarios in the pandemic put us together, and working you were up in Belfast, you were up in Fermanagh, you were up in Sligo, talking about making this movie. Stephen offered it to me, I think, 2 years ago. And it's one of those things where you don't get as an actor. Normally you audition or you go through that process, but Stephen goes, which part do you want to play here? And I was 10 years older than Budge as he was written. Budge was written as a 25-year-old. And I just said I'd love to play Budge. And he said, great, it's yours. And that's not one of those circumstances I've ever found myself in. And from the get-go, this man included me in the team, with Paul, with everybody in the planning, with Ben, and that was something that was a real pleasure, you know. So from the get-go, I was involved with the planning, and all the wars that ensued, and all of it. Yeah, in theory that was great, but the practicality was something different. But we all rehearsed, we all got to know each other in lockdown, and this time last year we started filming.
That's right. Yeah.
I got to meet the lads. We all had our masks on. I think I was in one room, and you all went into record your dialogue in the other. And we had a dream team, and that's the way movies should be made. And all I'm going to say is, for young filmmakers out there who haven't had a chance for an opportunity, who have had loads of questions on how to get movies made, all it takes is a conversation. There's guys like this who care about making movies. Paul Kennedy, guys like this that want to show you what can be done with a low budget, one camera, a small crew, and I think he's visionary. So that's how it came about. God, that was a long one.
The 2-week shoot now, isn't that right, Stephen? A 2-week in total with rehearsal period included. Is that right?
It was 5 days rehearsal and about 11 hours rehearsal a day, working through in daylight. We just worked through the script in order. We had to do Joana's scenes later because she was still self-isolating. So Joana had to be over for about 3.5 weeks for her performance because she had to self-isolate and she's there for every take. So.
In terms of the directing, I mean, we talked earlier, and you said that basically there wasn't much direction that had to be done in parts of you being in the camera and behind the camera. So how did it work with yourself and Moe in tandem, being in the passenger seat of the car and making that happen?
It was me berating Moe after a take. You know, it's like the rehearsal was my only chance to get across what was needed. But also, like Ben, for example, was watching the takes and giving feedback because he was outside the loop. He was back at Sligo, so he was able to give feedback.
Ben, obviously you being the writer, incredible writing, and of course over the course of the film we get to meet all of the characters who are only by voice. So how, it felt like a spider web because we've got those played by Stephen Rea, you have, you know, so many different characters left. How did you bring it all together in that sense? And what was your inspiration for that?
Inspiration, amalgamation of films I love.
Yeah.
Obviously Michael Mann was a big inspiration.
Absolutely, he's mentioned a few times.
Yeah. It was maybe a bit on the nose here and there. But through collaboration, through conversation with Steve, I don't know how many Zooms we had, hashing this out, and compiling those conversations, taking notes, recording the Zoom calls, and chatting with Moe then later down the road. I don't even know, it's through structure, through format and all that kind of stuff.
And you have your 6 characters.
Yeah.
The big inspiration for both of us was Locke, because Ben had written a script called One Way, which is going to come out later in the year, which was about a guy stuck in a bus, making phone calls, trying to save his life.
I have to think about automobiles.
He's got one on a van, he's got one on a train, or a space rocket.
So Ben can't drive, but speaking of which, I mean, you were like a Formula One. You were like a Formula One ninja in the car. I mean, we saw so much of Belfast in the backseat. We were like passengers, but you know, the concentration levels are acute to do something like that and keep that role going. Let's talk about the improv, because you know, I would have thought there was an awful lot, but actually, did you keep to the script?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He would punish me very severely.
Okay.
No, it was only one moment. It was when the police pulled us over. That was the only improv. Yeah, that was.
Talk about that, because you spoke about that before. That, like, obviously, the anxiety and the palpitations on your face. That's all truism.
Well, we all wanted to get that one take. You know, we all wanted to get something that was memorable, and when you hear the sirens go off, part of you just wants to be pulled over. And Stephen was, you know, my brother in arms there on the day because he was holding the camera. Where's Dave? Dave, cinematographer, come on, come on, yeah. So Dave, it's his first feature movie here. He shot Nightride. Dave first. So Dave, the legend, he did a switcheroony with Steve where he honkered in the back and Steve got in the front and you were recording for when the cops pulled me over.
That's got the wonkiest camera work because I'm the one holding the camera. So all the rest is like super slick. That's Dave.
I noticed.
I was interested, you know, Stephen, to talk about lighting, and obviously that's of course for you as well in terms of cinematography. I mean, you must have been fighting against so many, creating that, and obviously all in one seamless take.
Yeah. The whole world of that I didn't control, so we had to thread a needle in what we could control, and you know, I'm pretty positive with the choices we made together that, you know, we kind of got the most out of every little moment we could, and you know, and with Moe's performance and everyone else supporting along, you know, it was a ride, for sure.
Absolutely, a joyride, as we say. In terms of obviously the feel for the film, you know, it's very high octane, very fast paced, you know, gritty realism, but then you have this real energy of music behind it with Phil Keiran. Is Phil here?
Yeah.
Oh, Phil, you know,
I was trying to hide.
but it's just, it really, it makes it explosive as far as I can see, and really, you know, makes the characters come alive. Well, how did you work with the gang to make that happen?
Just watching it tonight, I was kind of thinking more of this. It felt sort of like a collaboration thing with Stephen. A lot of it, you know, we tried some stuff out and it didn't work, and then it's like, give me a week and I come back with this kind of bunch of stuff, and they seem to like it.
And was music always an integral part of how this feature film was going to be made?
Phil actually was partially the inspiration, because there was a play called East Belfast Boy by Stephen Rea that I saw that Phil had done music for. And it was about this, you know, kid in his 20s with a quarter-life crisis, and he's a DJ, and Phil does like a live score to the show.
Right.
And so even before the script was written, you know, talking to Ben, I mean, Ben was actually listening before Phil even knew about this. Ben was listening to Phil's music while he was planning what to write. So Phil actually was a big inspiration, because he's a phenomenal musician. Like, all the music, aside from the song in the middle, is his. Every time there's a club scene, every time there's music in the back of a phone call, and there's a huge range of music. That's all.
It was a big help listening to his music.
Because of course
Well,
it gives it,
yeah.
gives it lots of energy. I mean, let's talk about the filming itself though, because you ran into some difficulty, even just with passers-by, people wanting to stop, see you guys. Was there elements that were a little bit dangerous while you were filming?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
There's, so obviously Moe's in the Legacy, the car, but we're in the van in front, and we can't control what's happening. So like, in the scene where he gets stopped by the police,
Yeah.
the night after that, on the same road, 2 burglars ran out in front of us, and we had to slam the brakes on the van, and we were like, go! Let them cross the road. Go, don't mess with the tape. And then we kept going. So yeah, it brought us difficulties. We got stopped by the cops so many times. Like that, the take you see where we got stopped by the cops, I was so hacked off with the cops in Belfast for this, that like, I kicked the door open, man, and I was like, we're doing a movie. Started shouting at the cops, like, never done that, man. We're doing a movie. They both like, oh, okay. Listen, I told your bosses we're doing the movie, okay? And we've done, this is like the 2nd time you guys have pulled us over when we're doing this movie. You've got to stop this. And they're like, okay. And I was like, go give him back his license. And then they started arguing. One of them was like, I'm not going, I want to be in the shot. So he went back and said, here you go, sir, here you go.
So, was there a route you took? There was
Yeah.
there was loads of
We had it
as
all
viewers
planned
to
out.
see, you know.
It was all planned out. Like, we had, like, the route was broken down into 17 sections, and each one was named after a line in a Michael Mann movie. We're pretty nerdy, like.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
come on, fill us in.
one was called, my favourite one was the one between driving up to Kilscollar. That was called Brother, You Are Going Down. When De Niro says that, or no, Pacino says it to De Niro, he said, Brother, You Are Going Down. But yeah, just to go back to what Stephen was saying about the music, when these guys presented me with the script, first of all, he emailed it to me and he was like, put on a Phil Keiran album and listen to it. So I did, and I was like, yeah, we got it.
I have to say, Phil Keiran, fan after watching that, absolutely tremendous. I'm just going to move down the line to some of the guys, because obviously your characters are unfamiliar to me in terms of, obviously just heard your voice. So talk us through the collaborative experience of doing something like that, your acting, in order to reciprocate Moe as well, giving him a benchmark to work up.
Yeah, well, I think I can speak on behalf of all of us and say how lucky we are to work with Stephen. You know, Stephen will really take you through any type of performance, and certainly nitpicky in a really positive way, in that he'll kind of ask why you're saying a line a certain way, and I think he really gets great performances out of everyone. So I really enjoyed it in that behalf. But it was just so much fun, and I actually, watching it in the auditorium, I hadn't seen it before, but it's so much fun. And you can just laugh at so many moments, so it flips from, you know, quite serious to comedic very quickly, and so that was great. But collaboratively, it was a wonderful experience.
I imagine so. And were you feeding Moe lines, or is that done?
Yeah, where were we? The Flint Hotel in Belfast. So Moe was in one. I don't know about you guys, we had the same, but yeah, in different hotel rooms. And I'm sure the other guests were like, "What on earth are these guys doing?" But yeah, that was really fun.
The other thing as well is Joana and Ciaran and Jared were like, you know, there's a dozen guys in the van in front every night that I'm tailing.
Right.
But, like, Joana would be in at the very beginning, and then would have to go through the whole route and be there for the end as well. And Ciaran would have, and so that's very difficult, you know. It's me for the whole thing, but then the guys would pop in for do their bits, and like everybody was being tailed around Belfast at any given time, like a whole crew in the van in front, and then the guys get out, do our bits, kind of like theatre in a way, like we wish each other like have a good run and that.
I was just going to say to you, it's almost like a play in a sense.
Yeah,
that
I'm going to
you
follow
work
it down.
together. Paul, produce plays indeed. Joanna, I know you're down at the end there, and I know you're not massively keen to talk, but I just wanted to say, in terms of this kind of ensemble experience, did you enjoy it? Especially, obviously, you're seeing it being with Moe, particularly.
Yeah, I loved the experience. I loved working with Moe, with Stephen. I felt very protected in that way. Even though I was terrified of failing, because like when you're in the last scene, if you do something wrong, you mess up the whole take. So I was very focused on not making a mistake. But I felt very, very protected by the whole crew, and just was very happy to be there.
Indeed, because it's an unusual style of filmmaking, Stephen. You know, doing something like this that is, it has a touch of kind of uncut gems. We see it kind of like with Jake Gyllenhaal and Guilty. Is it something that you want audiences to take on and embrace? You know, this energy that you brought to this film.
Well, in terms of the energy, one of the ideas is to do things unusually. So the phone calls, they're actually phone calls we've recorded onto a caller app. So Stephen Rea, I've never met. We called him up for an hour on Easter Monday. It was me and Paul. It was on speakerphone. I was in Ukraine. It's a one speaker, he's one speaker, and he's like saying the lines, and we record them. And the recording is what you hear on screen. And it's the same with the driving for real. So you find ways of finding an energy that's real, because the thing that would be terrible is if it's just fake. If you're watching this and you think you don't believe it. But in terms of the plotting, it comes down to Ben basically having pulled it off, because we talked about it a lot, but he came back with a draft, and I called Paul and I said, it's there, get ready, you're going to get a draft in about 3 weeks, and we're going to be ready to go start looking for money. That was, and that was because Ben really went into the sources. Even before I met Ben, he was working with this sort of film. He was working with this kind of like Locke style, multiple storylines sort of thing. It's very much kind of like his signature in terms of what he writes.
Indeed. Well, the wheelhouse of the writing is incredibly intelligent, and of course is very immersive as well, because you're basically in the passenger seat with Moe and enjoying the journey. Well, I wouldn't say enjoying, but you're on the journey with him whether you like it or not. Moe, in terms of the character as well, he was quite steady, fast, calm throughout it as all. But there was, scenes that obviously you portray a lot of violence. How did you kind of pull that off? How did you get yourself in the mindset, switching from a calm, emotive, very serene kind of element to his character to then obviously absolute violence?
Well, the violence was all down to the way Ben had written it and Stephen had staged it, so that you could look away and imagine it. So I didn't really have to do any, and that's more powerful really, when you can look away, like the scene where Stephen stages it. That's not me walking through the house. That's a doppelganger for me, because we didn't actually.
We couldn't get the window open. So basically we're Kieran's thrown through the window. The house, we couldn't open the window, so we had an actor dressed in Moe's clothing walking left to right, and then Moe was waiting the other side to jump down at the same time.
Okay.
So there's little cheats and little smoke and mirror, and with the nature of the character and the energy and what we tried to find during rehearsals and shooting it, it was a week before this time last year, a week before the riots, and stuff was happening that was outside of our control. And I always loved Ben's script. It's quite a funny script. It's
very funny.
Not necessarily light-hearted for Budge, but maybe could have been a bit more light-hearted at times. I think kind of adopted a more of a steadfast, stoic approach, because we were more inspired by Michael Mann, and things were getting intense as we went on. The time, every day we shot a movie each night. We'd try and come home, and me and Stephen would critique it, and we'd try and find the right energy. And sometimes the energy, you kick yourself after a night going, that's too much. Or sometimes you go back and you go, that's too little. And we were trying to find the right one before we had no time left. So we found some.
You must have been exhausted. Oh my God, what a performance. We're going to wrap up our bit quite shortly, because I want to take some questions from the floor. I see Ciaran and other directors and friends and family, of course, who might like to ask a question. But You know, Stephen, in terms of what we just spoke briefly earlier before, I mean, this was made on a very small budget. And to create a film like this is absolutely sensational. You have to win nominated performances and everything out of it as well. It's well done.
You know, we made Ben's script was written in such a way that it could be made for any budget. Paul is an actor, for example. Like originally it was going to be me playing Scholar, Paul playing Troy, until we got, you know, and Paul actually would have been a very interesting Troy, although Jared is magnificent. I love Paul as an actor, but basically Paul's focus was laser on, this is so complicated to produce, I'm going to step aside, but there's also a version of the film that you don't see any of our characters, but it's for a smaller audience.
Okay.
But I think if there's any young filmmakers out there wondering about what stops them getting stuff made, this is a guy making phone calls sitting in the car. It's as cheap as it gets. It is as cheap as it gets. It does not get cheaper as a movie, but it doesn't feel small because we create a world whose voice presents characters.
Absolutely. And as you said again, it was a banger. Right, we're going to take it over to the floor. If anybody has any questions for Moe, for Stephen, Ben, and any of the gang, just raise your hand. Huh? Yes, you can take my mic, sir.
Shout.
Shout.
What will Ukraine sound like when it comes out on the 4th of March?
So obviously, because my partner was Ukrainian, and it was the language that was to hand. The question is, I mean, I think there'll still be a country when it comes out. I'm very glad that Sophia's character is Ukrainian, rather than just like the criminal elements that that Budge is dealing with. But I've been living in the Ukraine on and off for about the past 3 years. I've made 2 short films there in Ukrainian. I only understand them through the subtitles, so it's really terrible what's happening. I got out like about a week and a half ago. In terms of their, obviously everyone in Ireland backs the right of self-determination for the Ukrainian people, and it's very frightening. I know loads of filmmakers over there, and they're picking up guns. They've no combat training, and they're getting ready to give their lives for defending their country. It's something on my mind. There's nothing I can do.
Anyone else? Any other questions? One over here. Can you, Potter?
Yeah.
Loud as you can.
Congratulations, guys, the entire cast and crew. I think, speaking on behalf of everyone, we were completely in the zone for the entire thing. My question is for Ben, the writer. Ben, towards the ending, it's sort of been left off in a way where the audience are wondering, is there a possible sequel to this? Is it something you would revisit, in particular as a one-shot, along with Stephen, or is it something that you're kind of like, well, we've done this, and kind of move on type of thing?
One shot is Stephen's call, but yeah, I'd love to, just watching it tonight even, and watching Jared Jordan's performance, I'd love to see what he does next. So, mulling things over. And yeah, obviously inspired to push a trilogy in.
Brilliant. Anyone else? Because we're going to have to wrap up, guys. Get late. Anyone else? Yeah. How are you, sir?
This is for Stephen and Moe. How would you rate Subaru Legacy? As a vehicle for...
Well, there's 2 representatives of Eastwood Motors here. The Subaru Legacy is actually my car, so if you want to check if my MOT is on, you can actually read that license plate and look it up. But it's a super quiet car. It's brilliant for recording. Petrol. How do you rate it?
I just really wanted that car and rage and that you bought it. I just said like 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10.
Actually, Moe took it for a spin after the shoot, and I remember getting it back. There's all this muck up the back of it, and some Instagram photo of Moe in the mountains, and it's like the gear stick doesn't seem quite right, since.
One final question. Anyone else? No. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there, guys. Listen, I want you to all give them a fantastic round of applause. Friday. So thank you very much for joining us. The cast and crew of Nightride.